New details today that we're learning about the United States strike on Venezuela. The country's leader, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife were captured. They're expected to appear in an American courtroom this morning. President Trump announced the operation on social media over the weekend. Attorney General Pam Bondi filed the indictment in New York. Now, during the raid, explosions rocked the capital city, Caracas, for less than 30 minutes. President Trump made it clear that he did not discuss the operation with Congress.
And in the days since we first learned about the attacks, high-ranking officials in the Trump administration have been working to say that the case is actually in the best interest of the U.S. Critics, however, are warning that the opposite is true. National correspondent Christine Frizzell is breaking it down for us from Washington.
With Venezuela's leader Nicolas Maduro on U.S. soil, the future of his country is for now in the hands of the United States, with oil at the center of the strategy.
We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure.
The president's team now making clear it's not just about energy and financial gain for the United States, but as a means to weaken U.S. adversaries.
Why does China need their oil? Why does Russia need their oil? Why does Iran need their oil? They're not even in this continent. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. And we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be a base of operation for adversaries, competitors, and rivals of the United States.
Other supporters touting the operation as a national security win, given Venezuela's proximity to our country and his ties to unfriendly leaders.
Venezuela invited Cuba, they've invited Nicaragua, but they also invited China and Russia and Iran and Hezbollah into our hemisphere. They've got more oil than Saudi. That's going to drive down the price of Russian oil, and it's going to take money out of Putin's pocket to prosecute the war in Ukraine.
As far as China, which has for years ignored sanctions on Venezuelan oil and was its top customer, President Trump suggested they'd be allowed to buy it still, but there may be conditions. Several, though, speaking out against the operation.
We don't consider Venezuela our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is right here in the 50 United States, not in the Southern Hemisphere.
Other critics argue President Trump is simply trying to enrich his friends with ties to Wall Street and big oil.
Venezuela is not a security threat to the United States. They're not threatening to invade us. There is no terrorist group like Al-Qaeda operating there that has plans to attack the United States.
China, Russia, and Iran have all been pretty tight-lipped about any sort of response to U.S. actions in Venezuela, but all three have condemned the operation and referred to it as an act of armed aggression against a sovereign country. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
Christine, thank you. The Trump administration says they plan to brief Congress members about the operations in Venezuela today. Top officials, including the U.S. Secretary of State, CIA Director, and Attorney General, are going to share details on the attack and the capture of Venezuela's president. The so-called Gang of Eight, which includes the Senate Majority Leader, Senate Minority Leader, House Speaker, and House Minority Leader, is scheduled to attend the briefing. Lawmakers on military and foreign relations panels are also expected to attend.
The sudden strike has left many Americans wondering who exactly Nicolas Maduro is and why the U.S. launched an attack in the first place. Nicolas Maduro was president of Venezuela since 2013, taking the office after the death of Hugo Chavez. He declared himself the winner of Venezuela's presidential election in 2018, refusing to leave. The U.S. alleges that Maduro led the Cartel of the Suns, which is a Venezuelan cartel that traffics cocaine. He was also charged with narco-terrorism crimes by the U.S. in 2020.
The operations left the world wondering who's going to be in charge of Venezuela after Maduro's capture. Speaking aboard Air Force One on Sunday, President Trump says the U.S. is in charge of Venezuela after capturing the country's president. Listen to this.
Don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
It means we're in charge.
President Trump said that the U.S. is going to temporarily run the country while it's currently transitioning from one leader to the next to, quote, get the oil flowing, while Secretary of State Marco Rubio suggests the U.S. would not govern Venezuela directly, but enforce an existing oil quarantine. Venezuela's interim president's hoping for a respectful collaboration. Stay tuned to Fox 25 this morning. Coming up at 8:15, we've got statements from Oklahoma lawmakers and a look at what comes next for Maduro and his wife.
Your time is 6:22, and today we're learning that deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife are set to appear in a U.S. courtroom today. We have a live look on his transport right now. This is happening in real time. Maduro and Celia Flores face narco-terrorism charges after being captured in their home Saturday. This all took place during a military operation, and the U.S. is accusing the couple of ordering kidnappings, beatings, and murders of those who owed them, quote, drug money or undermined their alleged drug trafficking operation. President Trump says Maduro is also, quote, a rough man who killed millions of people.
The case it's infallible. People are so happy with what we've done. You know, you go down to Miami, you go down to a lot of places, and they're all dancing in the streets of this country.
Maduro's lawyers are likely to argue that he is immune from prosecution as a sovereign head of state, but the U.S. is not recognizing Maduro as Venezuela's legitimate leader, especially after a disputed 2024 re-election.
The United Nations Security Council is meeting today to discuss the capture of Maduro. The emergency meeting was requested by Colombia with support from Russia and China. Venezuela's ambassador to the UN wrote to the council on Saturday. They're claiming that the Trump administration violated international law. The UN Secretary General's expressed alarm. They're warning that the developments in Venezuela set a dangerous precedent for other countries.
Plus, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani says he called President Trump to voice opposition to the military operation in Venezuela. Take a listen.
I called the president and spoke with him directly to register my opposition to this act and to make clear that it was an opposition based on being opposed to a pursuit of regime change, to the violation of federal and international law, and a desire to see that be consistent each and every day.
The mayor gave no further details on the call, but Maduro and his wife have been indicted on federal drug charges in the Southern District of New York. They were shown in a video Saturday being held at the DEA's New York office.
On Capitol Hill, reaction to the military operation in Venezuela is falling largely on party lines, with Democrats condemning the arrest of Nicolas Maduro as unlawful and Republicans applauding the move. There are some outliers, though, within the GOP, including outgoing Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I want to see domestic priorities that put Americans first in regards of health care. Health insurance costs too much, car insurance, home insurance. And these are issues that matter to Americans. We don't consider Venezuela our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is right here in the 50 United States, not in the Southern Hemisphere.
Representative Greene speaking there to NBC's Meet the Press. She argues that if Trump cared about drug trafficking, he'd focus on Mexican drug cartels. Earlier this year, Greene announced plans to resign from Congress. This is following a public fallout with President Trump over the DOJ's handling of the Epstein file release. Her last day in office is today.
Plus, we're hearing from Oklahoma's delegation as well. Congressman Kevin Hern says, quote, Maduro flooded communities with deadly drugs, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans, and now he will finally face justice for his crimes. Senator Markwayne Mullins, though, says President Trump is 100% focused on protecting the American people. He goes on to say Maduro must face justice for his crimes against American facilities, or rather families. Personally, I hope he rots in prison, end quote.